What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake KBO DFS Wise Stream CK013. Here once again, you can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I, of course, I'm from the WiseTake Nation. Yesterday was the first stream we did. I've been doing content for free at wisetake.com, cheat sheets, projections. I've been doing little previews in the beginning, just had some data, and then I've been writing breakdowns. It's been free for the time being. It is. I know a couple of you have actually signed up at the site, and I appreciate your support, and I appreciate you guys signing up, but we're not accepting the payments at the moment, so I've refunded those if you did, because the content is currently free. Once we remove the content from the paywall, whenever that may be, whether it's when baseball comes back or whatever, who knows, we'll give some notice and announce all that stuff. But in the meantime, the content's free, baby, so go ahead and take advantage. And regardless, the YouTube channel is always here, so it'll always be free. So I appreciate those of you. We did get a pretty good amount of likes, which felt really good. So I appreciate those of you who did show some love and hit that like button. The comments are appreciated. Feedback's always appreciated. However you guys think, whatever I can do to help you guys find what you're looking for, whatever, just let me know. And we're going to go do the dirty. Not to mention, not to brag, but we did pretty well yesterday, I thought. I saw a couple of our usual members who are in the Slack chat, and I apologize those of you who want to get in the Slack chat, but we aren't accepting payment, so you can't. We'll work something out when the time comes. But yeah, I saw a couple screenshots. Ranimal, our boy, longtime member, did pretty well his first time playing KBO. I think it was his first time playing KBO. But Doosan, man, it was all about Doosan. And then we talked about Aaron Brooks and Jokic, the Joker, right? They did well. Chris Cox, what's happening, man? See you in the YouTube chat. What's up, man? Good to see you. So it's a grind, right? Lineups. The lineups, I got it a little bit later. I mean, I was up in the morning since 4, and the lineups were just coming out a little slow. But we got them straightened out. And remember, once I update the lineups, it automatically updates all the content. The cheat sheets get updated automatically. The projections, obviously. What we have it is if they're not in the lineup, if they're not in the projected lineup, they have a 0. So if they're in, once we have the confirmed lineup, then the one, like if somebody's not in the lineup, they get a 0 instead for the projection purposes. So that's why it's important if you can, to wake up in the morning and get that edge. I mean, the other day in that slate where the 3 games got canceled, if you did wake up in the morning, you probably had a pretty good edge. I was so like in the zone updating the lineups for WiseTake that I missed the Doosan news. I got it like 2 minutes before lock. It was just kind of too late to do anything about it, but I still did well that day. I did well because I got out of the first 2 games. But there were so many people who were playing this and aren't able to wake up at that time, and they're just kind of winging it, throwing in projected lineups, and just seeing what happens. And so, it's pretty wild. Gilbert Powell says, great info last night, bro. Thanks. I appreciate it, man. It's not going to happen every night, so I appreciate that when we do get something right, you guys are happy and showing some support and showing some love. It is much appreciated. It's not going to happen every night, especially not in baseball. A lot of variance. So hopefully some of y'all took advantage and some of y'all did well. Armando Vasquez, what's good, man? How'd you end up doing last slate? Saw you up there. Yeah, it was like we got a lot right, which was good. The projections were really well. So what I basically do most nights is I'll do like 150 teams in the 50 cent. I'll do the 20 entry max $3. I'll do the $1 20 entry max, and then I'll do the regular donkey, like the $10 whatever it is with the 20. I think it was 50K up top yesterday, and I'll do anywhere from 30 to 50 to 60, whatever I feel like doing on that slate. So those are the lineups I care the most about, obviously, because that's the big prize. So normally what I do is I'll sort by projection. Right, the lineup, so I'll build them all in Fantasy Cruncher and Optimizer, and I'm talking like anywhere from 220 to 250 teams on a night. That's why I do it that way, so I have as many teams as I can. And so normally I'll sort it by projection, and I'll put it into like based off the highest projected team. I'll put that in the higher contest and kind of go down. So I did that the other day, and it didn't work out great because I took a stance against Dan Straley. So I had like 20-30% Straley, but I had him in my lower teams, the 50 cent, etc. So the $10 teams, the big dollar teams didn't do well because I had a lot of stacks against Straley who dominated. Like I said, man, I'm wrong too. It happens. We're all wrong sometimes, but probably most of the time. So yesterday, I decided, or this morning, whatever you want to look at it, I decided not to do that. I decided I'm just going to keep it distributed. My exposures, just kind of distribute them evenly. And it's a damn shame I did that, because when I sorted, I went back and my best team finished third in the 50 cent. All in all, I basically broke even, despite the fact that I did so well and I was right about a lot, because it was because the best teams were in the wrong contests. I kind of got screwed. Had I had that team and the donkey, we're talking about maybe like fourth place, which is still, we're talking at least a 4-figure night. So those are the little things, man. But you look at the positives, and that we had that really good team within our teams. It was just, and when I sorted it by projection, it was like the 35th team that was created, and I had 50 in the $10 donkey. So it would have been in that donkey if I would have just stuck with the process. But we make changes, try to get better. But you do want to kind of stick to your process and wait for it to come. The projections were on yesterday. That's the bottom line. Projections were on. This is baseball. We don't necessarily rely on projections a ton. And I manipulate our projections to reflect what we're looking for. So that's why I'll trust our projections, because it's not just raw numbers. A lot of it's raw numbers, but a lot of it is also us just incorporating and like, no, you know what? Like, I think this has a really good shot. It's a way for us to kind of give content, just another way for us to give content for those of you who do MME and maybe don't have time to sit there and think about all that crazy shit. But anyway, so it was a good night, but it could have been a lot better. I really thought it was. And you want to hear one last bad beat? I'm not gonna keep bitching. It's like I am having fun playing KBO. I'm not gonna lie, but the last thing I'll say. So I'm in third place in the 50 cent. Right, we're talking about $150 for that spot. Now, again, don't feel bad. I won. Whatever. It was fine. But I'm sitting there in third place, and there's a guy in front of me. So first place is at like 1 point ahead. Second place is ahead of me by like a quarter of a point, or something like that. We both have, there's only one game left in the bottom of the ninth inning. We each have one player from the same team, the Dinos. His player is batting directly before my player. Bottom of the ninth, his player hits the home run. My player never gets a turn at bat. That's the difference of first place, which would have been winning $900 total on the day between all the contests, and winning the $500 or $600, after. So, bad beat. But hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. It is fun. It is fun. No. Cam and I did not win. Just to be clear, I did not win the donkey yesterday. I finished third in the 50 cent. That was my best team. I was just saying that had I sorted it if I would have stuck with my process and put the highest projected teams in the $10, it would have probably finished fourth or fifth, which, maybe a couple thousand. That would have been nice. But anyway, we're moving on. Myron Kidd in the YouTube chat says, great night last night. Really enjoying the KBO despite the time. Very offense and fun league. I agree, man. On Myron, this is a good point. There's less strikeouts. It's like there's not as many home runs, but there's less strikeouts, so there's more balls being put in play, which in turn kind of makes up for the fact that there's not as many home runs, right? Because we're just getting more action in general. I agree. It's been fun. I've had a blast doing this, and the best part is that there is that edge, because there's some people out there playing that aren't really, like, they're not sure of themselves in MLB, and now they're playing KBO with players they never heard of. And on top of that, a lot of people don't have the data. Now, Fangraphs did start adding some stats for KBO, which was cool. I was trying to pull it just to make our stuff more efficient, but, having difficulties. Anyway, I'm gonna have to put a timestamp on this, because I pretty much just ranted to you guys for the first 9-10 minutes of this. Let's get into the slate. First up, we're gonna start with the Kia Tigers and the Hanwha Eagles. So Kia Tigers first. We got Min Woo Lee on the mound for these dudes. So looking at it altogether, this is a projected lineup, just to be clear. I believe, matter of fact, hold on one second. Let me just do one thing real quick. Get something ready. Let's take a look at the stats. We'll start with the pitcher, Min Woo Lee. Let's go to his 19 stats. Okay, here we go. Min Woo Lee. And I gotta remember to switch the screen for you guys. There you go. All right, so we've got him projected for about 11.15 points. There is some manual increase there. I'll explain why in a minute. Mostly because he was in the bullpen a lot last year, so his projection, the averages were based off of like very few games where he pitched like 1 or 2 innings. So we had to kind of reflect and incorporate and see where that kind of translated to. Let me see here. Perfect. Let's do this. And clone, and we'll do this. Say 2. 2:30. Just running some stuff in the background. All right. So what's interesting, this is 2019 stats. So he had a 5.43 ERA, which is not great. A 1.63 whip, not great. What I do like is the home run percentage was fairly low, 1.41%. Now, again, we have to temper our expectations because remember, he did come out of the bullpen. The 19.79% K rate is the same thing. It's very attractive for this league. You can see these K rates. That's one of the second highest that we have on the slate. This is 2019 numbers, to be clear. So the whip is a little worrisome. I think he had some control issues at times. That's why his whip is so high. But the FIP is there, so it's not really a contact issue, and the home run percentage kind of reflects that. So I actually do like Min-Woo Lee. He projects to be, I think, our third best point per dollar pitcher right now. We've got Shi Huang Shang. For Hanwha on the other side of this game, that's interesting. Only one of those guys can get the win, if any. But the FIP I was impressed with. If we go to his 2020, you can see, so he had a 7.5 in his first start earlier this season. Similar patterns, though. Look, it's only one game, but a similar pattern. 6.35 ERA, which is shitty, but only a 3.29 FIP. The whip, 1.4, still high. But I think that this dude's got decent stuff if he can figure out the control thing. So at 7,300, he is probably one of the cheap pitchers that I do like. To be honest, it's both the pitchers in this game that I like, including Shi Huang Shang. We'll get to that next. Let's go back to the bats real quick. So going back to the bats, we see here we got some pop guys like Preston Tucker, who's expensive. Choi. I'm not terribly interested in the offenses on either side. These aren't two great offenses exactly from a team perspective. You'll see as we go on, as you did yesterday, when you look at the WOBAs and ISOs. And this is one of the things I meant with people who don't have all the stats. Like now that Fangraphs is here, maybe I guess people will start to have them. Even though I was having a problem pulling that data, but people are gonna have. Before they didn't even have WOBAs. They're dealing with averages and ERAs and all that shit. So there was an edge there. It was nice. But anyway. I'm not terribly interested in the offense. Preston Tucker, I'm fine with. A guy like Chan-Ho Park's interesting. I don't like the price, but the 39 stolen bases always catches my eye. I just can't stand the fact that his WOBA and ISO numbers are just awful, but he's got a ton of speed. 39 stolen bases in 2019 is pretty impressive. If we go to the other side, we've got Hanwha, whatever. And by the way, I think Kia is actually slightly favored. It's a close spread though. It's a very close spread. So here we've got Shi Huang Shang. Just make sure that's right. And I'm going to switch over because we're going to pull up his stats also. So he's the highest point per dollar projection we have today. He's the highest ranked point per dollar wise. And it's interesting. 6,500, I think that is very low. A little too cheap, just to kind of show you why. He just put up 18 DraftKings points in his last game. See if I can see who that was against. That was against SK, who's not great, but not awful. We'll get into it in a second. Another high whip. But these pitchers are very similar. So I'm going to end up with a good amount of both of them. So I'll be having I'm playing some risk factors. I'm chasing the strikeouts because I'm chasing the ceiling and upside. But there's definitely some risk. If you look at Zhang, the FIP is still better than the ERA. It's above 4, so it's not like he's an elite pitcher or anything like that. The whip was really high last year, 1.64. But again, 19% K rate. And I think he had some work out of the bullpen also. Home run rate wasn't terrible, probably somewhere around the average, I'm assuming. So this is more of a play against the opposing teams. And you can see even in his last start, he had a 3 ERA in a game he did well in, 18.9 DraftKings points. And the FIP was 2.6. So still, the whip is there, 20% K rate. There's some stuff we can work with. Let's take a look at the offenses we're working with here. Try to dissect this as a whole. 17% K rate in the projected lineup of Kia. 17.85 in the projected for Honda. So they're both around 17, which in this league is not bad. In this league, it's not bad. Now, these are 2017 numbers, but they're based off, this isn't just let me pull up what they did last year as a team. I calculate this by averaging what the players individually have, right? So when Soon Boon Kim is in there, that's going to really, really lower that opposing strikeout percentage. And, that kind of stuff is interesting. So we'll see what happens. But I like both pitchers here. maybe it's a stance I'm wrong and get my ass kicked, but even from a projection standpoint, they just project well. That's going to put me off the bats a little bit. Obviously, for the Eagles, guys like Sung-Yuo Lee for one-offs. Jared Hoying is definitely someone worth keeping an eye on. He's got speed, get 22 stolen bases last year, and power, 18 home runs. He's one of those ceiling-type players that are going to have a monster game, so just keep an eye on him. If it's not today, like, just kind of throughout. And the same, I mean, look at the difference between a guy like Young Kyu Lee, who had 30 stolen bases. Look at that, but 325 ISO 0. It's rare to have a guy in this league that's taken 22 stolen bases and also hitting 18 jacks. Obviously, Sung-Yuo Lee would be next on the ISO list. 21 homers last year. Not bad. So, again, I'm not going to get too crazy on the offenses. I do want to keep an eye on Jared Hoying going forward, especially anytime he's under 5K. Maybe we'll catch him cheaper if he shits the bed. We'll see. Let's go on to the next game. And then I'll pop in the chat and say what's up. The KT Wiz going up against the NC Dinos. So the Wiz are underdogs, as you would imagine, in here against the Dinos, who are one of the better teams in the KBO. Hit the most home runs in the league last year, the Dinos. Starting with KTW, so William Cuevas, I'm a little on the fence with. You guys know, obviously, this guy, a lot of these players, the foreign players, weren't in the league last year, a lot of them, so we kind of have to find makeshift stats. So I pulled something, I forgot where exactly it was from, but I pulled what I thought would be comparable, where he had a decent year, because competition-wise, you don't want to compare the KBO to major league numbers. And we're seeing that being the case with guys like Brooks and some of these guys who really struggled in Major League Baseball but are having somewhat of success so far in the KBO. So those are all things to kind of keep in mind. Cuevas didn't project terribly. He didn't do well in his last game. The matchup is really shitty. If you look at his 19 numbers that year, whatever it was, I've said this before in my articles and I've said it on the shows, but my understanding of the research I had done, the most comparable league, and it's not an exact science, but the most comparable league to KBO would be like the AAA level. And I'm probably like the lower end of that, right? I think Japan is even considered to be a little higher in the competition rankings. But anyway, he's got a very tough matchup against NCD. So in this particular season, which I believe it was last year, this wasn't in the KBO, the numbers were pretty solid. Really, really shit the bed in his first start. And we'll take a look at that here in a second. So he played the Lotta Giants. He had 6 Ks, which was cool. But where is he? There he is. Yeah, he had 6 Ks, which was cool. 21 point, whatever, almost 20%. 6 earned runs against a lot of Giants, and that was one of the weaker offenses. He's now playing one of the top offenses. Now, we don't want to be all negative. You can see his projection alone based off his stats last year puts him at about 15. And his projection based off the one game puts him at like 5. This is basically what he put up in the last game. So, factored in with the matchup. So it's somewhere around that, his average. And then you factor in matchup. But so we got him somewhere in the middle-ish, right? The problem is, again, he's got a really tough opponent. So I don't know how much I go to him. I think he'll be low-owned because of how bad he was and the opponent. It just seems risky. But I will say this, man. This is not a deep pitching slate. I don't like the pitching very much at all. This is almost the opposite of what we had yesterday. He had a 10 ERA because he got rocked. Only a 4.3 FIP. I say only. It's not like a great FIP, but it's not as bad as a 10.8 ERA. A 1.2 whip. The home runs got him a little bit, which was kind of interesting, which leads, that wasn't really too big of a thing in his previous year, the previous league, 2.37. But it just so happens that he was getting tattooed and gave up a lot of home runs to I don't want to say a lot of home runs, but he gave up bombs to a lot of Giants, and now he's playing the best power team in the game. So I'm kind of interested in the Dinos, the old Dinos. Let's take a look back here. Look at some Bat Cities. For KTW, let's analyze the other pitcher, and then we'll look at the hitters. How about that? We're still trying to figure out what the best method is here. So Mike Wright's on the other side. This is interesting. Okay, good. So Mike Wright's one of the more polarizing spots. It's reminding me of the Dan Straley spot the other day. I just don't know which way it's going to go, and I'm curious which way the public's going to go. I'm leaning towards the bats in this game, especially for what I think will be a low-owned KTW stack, and we'll get into kind of why. But let's talk about Mike Wright first. So Mike Wright, let me see. That's from a AAA season, I believe, that was comparable. Let me just take a look at it. Pitchers. Yeah, okay, this is from a different league. Where was he? Was it Japan that Mike Wright was at? Let me see. Mike Wright. I mean, you do all this stuff, and when you forget, it's just brutal. It's just brutal. I'm going to look. 2019, no, it looks like he was with Seattle. Yeah, duh. What am I talking about? I remember this motherfucker. Anyway, I tried to find somewhat of a comparable year. Obviously, he was not very good in his time in the majors. But, again, I think it was AAA in 2019 where he wasn't that bad. Or something like that. Anyway, that's not that important. So, let's take a look at 2019. Real quick. And look at these stats here. So, Mike Wright, who I think did really well in the last game. Yeah, 22. He had around 21 DraftKings points, 22. So looking at Mike Wright, he had a 6 ERA in this span, a 5.16 FIP, which is terrible, a 1.562 WHIP, K rate around 18%, home run rate 3.74%. Now you give him the benefit of the doubt. Different league, not as many home runs here because 3.74% is pretty high. We look at what his stats are. It's only one game, so I'm not trying to persuade you guys too much or anything like that. But 3.6 ERA, it looked good. His FIP was still really high at 6.7. Right? The WHIP was low. He had strikeouts. He was playing the lot of Giants. I'm sorry, not the lot of Giants. Let me just double check. I don't want to give any wrong information. I'm big on that. Don't like to mislead. Samsung, even better. The worst offense and the team that strikes out the most. And yet he still gave up a couple home runs and has a 9.52. So I'm kind of thinking that he might be popular today. And the reason I think that is because I don't think people necessarily fear the KT Wiz offense. And I think Mike Wright did really well in the last game. And I think he's somewhat of a familiar name. The American players, the foreign players are a little bit more popular, rightfully so, because people are assuming they're coming from higher leagues, which a lot of them are. So it's a polarizing spot. I'm going to have some Mike Wright exposure. It's just, do I have him in my lower teams as a hedge, or do I put him in my best teams? Or do I put, do I swing that way? So that's kind of the dilemma that I've got a little bit. But I think it's interesting that over a large sample, a 5.16 FIP, and then even in his last game where he did well against a bad team, the Samsung Lions, 6.7 FIP. So, you know what I mean? I don't know. Something seems like, it's like, he can get when he gets the strikeout, it's great. But if he's not really walking dudes, when he is getting hit, it seems like he's getting hit pretty hard. That's what it seems like to me. So I'm actually kind of interested. And if we look at the team, the Wiz, scroll back up here. We've got Mel Rojas, 4.15% home run rate. Not bad. Our boy Shi Huang. So we got some power to work with. Even Baek Ho Kang and Han Jo Yu, the 3, 4, 5, 6. Look at 3, 4, 5. That's some decent power, especially for this league. 14 homers, 13 homers is not bad. And you have some speed up top with Woon Jun Sim, Min Hoya Kim. So I think that there's some opportunity here. You know what I mean? I think that when I was running just the raw builds with our projections, I think I was getting a pretty good amount of KT Wiz. And I'm going to stick with my guns. That's why I think my highest projected teams will be there. But again, for those of you who do multiple teams, if I have, say, a ratio of 2 KTW stack teams to 1 Mike Wright or 3-1, I'm still going to have some Mike Wright. That's my point. So that's where I'm leaning. And again, I'm hoping that Mike Wright is a little popular because that's the way this thing works, right? I need him to be popular. Now, with that said, I think you could say the same thing on the other side of this game as far as the bats go with the Dinos. Now, one thing I'll say, like KTW is pressure for 3.5 runs, so they'll be low owned. That's another reason I think that Mike Wright will be popular. But so Mike Wright, I mean, maybe if you're playing cash, I'd probably play him in cash and fade him in tournaments, something like that. But that's just my approach today in tournaments. I'm getting a little risky with it, and the projections reflect that. Going on to the Dinos, man, you don't need an E. excuse to play these guys. We'll see what their stats look like. Sungbum Na, don't be fooled by these small samples you see here. This dude's got tremendous power. Hit a home run this morning, yesterday, whatever you want to call it. Very good offense, a lot of power. Going up against Cuevas, I think the home run percentage, I don't think we have a huge boost on him. Yeah, I wasn't getting a ton of them. So I may have to do something to kind of reflect Cuevas. When we switch to the 2020 stats, it'll be a little easier, but I know in our projections, whip and home run percentage are pretty highly graded, and his whip and home run percentage for this particular season wasn't bad. So it's not really giving a ton of a boost to the Dinos. I may have to go back and give a little bit of a boost to them. Because again, this is a guy that we don't know much about, but he's facing a really good team, and he just had a hard time with a team that wasn't as good as these guys. So we'll see. Then again, a 4.3 whip, it's, I don't know, 4.35% home run rate. It's interesting. You kind of expect him to bounce back. It's just hard to see it happening against the Dinos. Hopefully he does get rocked this time. Then his price drops, and we grab him in a bounce back spot against like Samsung or something like that. Those guys suck. If you haven't caught on to the trend when I talk about Samsung. Not the products. No offense to those of you on the phones or whatever. I'm not hating on the product. Let me check on the haha, my boy. What's up, Anthony? Anthony Valencia, Vegas 0205 in the house. What's up, man? What's up? Myron Kid, if you're playing both Yang and Wu Lee, you gotta hope it's a low-scoring pitcher's duel. Absolutely, Myron. If you were to do that, that's exactly the approach. You're just hoping that both teams kind of coast, and it's just a shitty game. Myron says, I can see why the NC Dinos are developing a trending fan base in the U.S. Exciting team with a stacked lineup from top to bottom. Yeah, man, that's Sungbum Na dude, man. Sungbum Na. That dude. Becoming a fan. At least for now. Let's keep it rolling. What's the next game? We've got the Doosan Bears and the Lauda Giants. Doosan. All right. Okay. So now we get to Doosan. Doosan, our boys from today, they did really well for us. It was very exciting. Big favorites again. Highest implied run total once again, 5.5. That was the pinnacle line for their team total. This is exactly what it was this morning, yesterday, whatever you want to call it. They're a good team. We'll start with Young Ha Lee. So he was one of the top pitchers in the game last year, but he's just a really good pitch to contact guy, right? He got a 13% K rate last year and a 17-4 record. It certainly helps when you're backed by one of the best offenses in the game. Nonetheless, is he worth the price of 93? Is he worth being the most expensive pitcher on the slate? Not just the most expensive pitcher on the slate, but genuinely expensive at 9,300. We'll look at his stats a little more thoroughly here. So we got Young Ha Lee. And from a raw points projection, like we'll talk about Wante Chu. And both of these guys have pretty decent matchups. And their numbers are almost identical. We'll get into that. But Young Ha Lee is a little more expensive, $400 more expensive on DraftKings. His raw points projection is slightly lower. And the opponent for Lee, while it's a lot of Giants, still a good matchup. Not as good as Samsung. So I have a hard time buying too much of Young Ha Lee when I feel like I'm getting the same, a little bit of a better deal with Wante Choi, which we'll get into in a second. But this guy's really good at pitching to contact. Why do I say that? Because you have a 13% K percentage, and yet you still have a 3.7 FIP and a 0.72% home run rate. You're pretty good at pitching to contact. Now, these kind of players are subject to BABIP. Good luck, bad luck. Which way the ball bounces, good hops, bad hops, fielding mistakes. Those kind of things can kind of add up. And you can see a 1.28 whip is like one wrong game, and that's it. A couple walks, a couple mistakes, and just balls finding holes. I think could be a problem. So I always have a hard time. Now, I'm MLB minded, obviously, just like you guys. So we're trained to chase the strikeouts. So I'm uncomfortable paying 9.3 for a pitcher that doesn't really get strikeouts, right? And I know it's like, oh, but you seem to be willing to pay 8,900 for Wante Choi or whatever. But again, that's really a lot of matchup-based stuff, which we'll get into. So I'm not terribly into Young Ha Lee. I'm not dying to attack him. But he went for 17 DraftKings points, somewhere around there. And he looked really good. Again, he's just good at pitching to contact. He's comfortable. 11% K rate, though. 1.42 ERA, 3.5 FIP. It's just, again, it's more about one-take Chi eliminating him for me. On the other side of this, we've got Shi Huang Shang. It's always fun saying these names. Which leads us to believe, I would expect that we're going to like Doosan once again as a stack. I mean, yeah, why not, right? They were just playing well. Maybe they're heating up. Get a little interesting. Look at the opposing K rate. Look at Doosan. This particular lineup from Doosan, Kunwu Park, all this. Can you guys see this? No, I got the wrong thing on. This particular lineup from Doosan has a 12.48% K rate. You see that? They just don't strike out. This guy's in a rough spot. He don't strike guys out either. He's got a 1.598 whip from 2019, a 4.72 FIP, closer to 5. It's better than his ERA, but 4-11, right? Gave up some home runs. This is a tough spot for this kid. I do like Doosan once again. Do I go as heavy? I was really heavy on Doosan last night. Do I go as heavy? I'm not sure, just because I know they're going to be really popular. It could be a little more leveragey, I think, maybe, to go somewhere else, but I'm not somewhere else completely, just maybe not the 30-40% I had of them before, but we'll see. They do project really well. Looking at back to the pitchers. Where is this guy? Okay. So here he is, Shi Huang Shang, whatever. We talked about his numbers. Have we seen him so far this year? So it looks like, he actually did really well in his first game this year. 8% K rate, though. I wonder if he built up some... I'm going to look him up real quick. Seau Suao. Okay, so that was against the KT Wiz. He gave up 5 hits, only had 2 strikeouts in 6 innings, 87 pitches. He's playing a significantly better offense than Doosan. So again, I lean towards the Doosan side. I don't think this is real. I'm not, even if it was, I'm not trying to pick on Doosan in this particular spot and just kind of praying. I'm much more comfortable with the Shi Huang Yang or whatever. This is the method I'm going. So yeah, I'm more so on the bats. I know it looked good, and he genuinely looked good, but he's playing a much tougher offense and the 8% K rate. I'm just not buying that he's that good at pitching to contact. He did give up 5 hits. They just couldn't put it together, right? So now he's playing a much better offense. So I'll be playing Doosan a pretty good amount once again. Doosan, big city of dreams. And of course, it's the usual suspects. Jose Fernandez. Keep an eye out on Subin Young with his 26 stolen bases. J-Il-O, 21 homers last year. So definitely some upside here with Doosan. And I know based off the numbers, they were one of the boosted teams that we got in our projections due to the matchup. One of the better matchups on the slate according to the numbers. So stick it with it. It's 2019 numbers, but we don't have enough of a sample for 2020 just yet. We'll go on to the next one. We've got the SK Wyverns, which is some kind of dragon for anyone who doesn't know. Hit that like button if you haven't already, guys. I appreciate y'all. And don't forget to take advantage of the free content while it's up there at WiseTake.com. Free projections. I do update them throughout the day. I'll update them again at about when the lineups come out at like 4:30 in the morning, whatever. I'll be in there working and updating them, so make sure you're checking around. If you're able, the cheat sheets are connected to them, so when I make an adjustment to a projection, it automatically reflects in the cheat sheet rankings. So, do the dirty. Let's do it. All right, so we've got SK and LG. Ricardo Pinto, another questionable mark. And I think yesterday's slate was a little more like plain, a little more black and white, especially we had a lot of good pitching, things like that. It's the opposite on this slate. We don't have a ton of great pitching that seems super reliable. So a lot of the offenses are in play. It makes it a little tougher to just focus on one offense. And that was one of the big reasons that I said that I like Doosan, but maybe today it's 20% instead of the 30-40, whatever it was I did last night. And that's because there wasn't as many options last night. But if we're unsure of the pitching on the slate, then obviously that means that some offenses should perform well. So I kind of want to get some exposure to a few different ones, if that makes sense. But looking at Pinto. Again, in a comparable year, 4.2 ERA, 4.94 FIP, 1.378 whip, not great. 21% K rate's not bad, but he was a little home run prone in his previous league. If we look at what he did in his last game, he did really well. He's got a matchup against LG. Similar issue is the K rate, right? Pinto, 12. I know, like you can see that we keep highlighting these guys that don't have good K rates and they posted good scores. But that's kind of what makes me nervous about them doing it again. He played Hanwha, which is another reason why I kind of like that game. We talked about with the pitching with the Shi Huang Shang and what's the other guy? Minwoo Lee, because I think both of those offenses are not very good. In this particular situation, he's playing LG, who I don't think is like the greatest offense, but I don't think they're as bad as those guys. The 12% K rate really scares me at a 7,900. His price has gone up, right? The day we took him, everybody took him, he was 4K that day. It was 4K. He was min price for a pitcher on DraftKings. So, yeah, it was easy to take that risk. Now at 8K, it's a little scary, especially when his average puts him around 11. And his final score was 18. Different leagues, so maybe that does come into play. Let's go back to the bats now. So, who is Pinto going to face? See, like Ramos. We talked about Ramos, didn't we? We talked about him. He's still 2,900. Super inefficient pricing. I just don't understand that. This guy has almost a 6% home run rate last year. They just don't respect him. And he's playing a pitcher that has had a home run issue in the past, right? 3.8% in this league is pretty high. I understand that these numbers didn't come from this league, but still, Ramos is not a player that's necessarily from this league either. So I'm good with him as the one. I'm okay with the LG stack. I don't know how much of them. I think I was getting some LG stacks, but I do have to make some changes to get more of the NC Dinos in there. But nonetheless, I do think that Ramos, man. I mean, see, look at LG. I guess you can give Pinto some credit because look at LG is pretty bad. Like looking at their lineup right now and their numbers, you got Ramos. And after that, it's just not pretty. Like your number 8. Why is the number 8 hitter the guy that hit 16 homers and a 167 ISO? It's not pretty. The Wobas aren't awful. But I guess Ramos just makes everyone look so bad. But Ramos, 2,900. What are you doing, DraftKings? Get with the program. Chan Gayu Lim was supposed to make his 2020 debut. In the rainout situation, his game got rained out. He got skipped. So he's back up. And we don't really have any this year. We don't have any recent data on him, which is discomforting. We got a lot more variables here. We've got him at around 9.3, assuming he's pitching because he came out of the bullpen a lot last year. K rate's decent. Gave up some home runs though. Whip isn't great. It's just mediocre. Just nothing special here. It's a risk. He's 7,200. You could certainly take a shot. SK not really known for striking out at 16.88. You can see Hyun Seok Lee is a rookie. So he didn't have any stats. He's playing catcher real cheap. We have a projection for him, but no stats. But Jamie Romack, Jeong Choi, it's tough. It's not easy. These guys, I mean, those two make it real difficult for people. They have been kind of playing shitty, though. SK in general, their offense, I don't want to say that. I'm pretty sure they put up big runs the other day. But you can see what I mean, like wanting to get some of these offenses and the pitching looking kind of suspect, right? None of these guys are real strikeout guys. I'm not terribly interested in either of them. I think I would lean more towards the offenses here if I had to pick a side. And it's actually got one of the higher totals when you consider that both teams are implied for about 4.5 runs. We're talking about what? 9 runs? Right? Not bad. So I have some interest in this offense. Jamie Romack and these guys are expensive, but I kind of like the cheaper pitchers anyway. Because I just feel like they're all going to score somewhere between like 5 and like 16 or 17. I do. I feel like they're all going to score somewhere within there. So that's why I kind of like the cheap guys. But there's some power between Ramos, Choi, Romack. Maybe a game where we get a lot of 3-man stacks or 2-man stacks. I don't know. But there's some interest here. We got one last game. If you haven't hit that like button, please hit that like button. Appreciate y'all. Oh, man. This shit just blocked something, man. Mike Concho says, I'm just struggling to figure out the weather. Mike, we did an interview with DFS meteorologist on the YouTube channel, Kevin Roth. Make sure you're following him. He's been doing the write-ups for the weather, so make sure you're paying attention to that shit. I'm not sure exactly what time he's doing it, but when I wake up in the morning, they're up there. He works for Roto Grinders, but Kevin Roth WX is his Twitter, at Kevin Roth WX. You can find all the information you need in the interview we did with him. But he's a real-life meteorologist, full-time DFS meteorologist, and he does do write-ups to kind of give you guys heads up on the weather. Now, he's still learning. We talked about that in the interview. He's still learning the tendencies of the teams because he reads a forecast, and it's like, oh, it's not that bad. But it's the same thing in the MLB. We've seen the Nationals in situations where it wasn't that bad. They could have just waited, and they decided to cancel the game. So he's still kind of figuring that portion out. You know, I'm a little surprised as I'm looking at this that Romac and Choi have projected so low. I guess this whip and this home run percentage isn't great. They should have gotten some boost. I think maybe the other players are taking so big of a boost, but even so, I guess the price is also like dramatic. I guess. Mike Contra, don't have Twitter. That's the problem. Oh, my man. You play DFS and you don't have Twitter? That's tough, man. That's tough. I do recommend you get Twitter if you play DFS. You don't have to follow for no bullshit if you're not into the social media stuff, but just for information. It's important. But my concho, rotogrinders.com. Matter of fact, rotogrinders.com. Sometimes I incorporate a link in my article. I think I forgot to do it on this one. But rotogrinders.com, if you go to the KBO section, there is typically a weather section. Yeah, I'll try to put the link in my articles. Because it is important. It is. You don't want to get screwed with that, Mike. You're right. All right, last game here, and then we're out of here. Anthony says you got to get on Twitter, Mike, and I agree with him. All the latest info, you got to get it, bro. Anthony Valencia, my boy, says, let's get it, bro. Fade the chalk. Or as a wise man once said, F the chalk. Yes, sir. Cash and DFS, our boy. The man, the myth, the legend. That was a fun interview we did the other day. I had a blast with him, man. He's a good time, that Cash and DFS. All right, let's go to the last game. We've got the Samsung Lions and the Kiwoom Heroes. All right, and we already at the last game? Yeah, we covered it. Okay, so for Samsung, we've got they're big underdogs, first of all. We know KIW or the Kiwoom Heroes are supposed to be one of the top offenses. Haven't been all that impressed with what I've seen so far, but they're supposed to be. Everybody keeps saying it. I think it's really just Byung-Ho Park, but I'm just kidding. They have a lot of good wobas. We'll get into it. David Buchanan. We took a sample. Now, this guy has never struck guys out. He's always had shitty strikeout numbers. Had a high whip in 2019. Looking at his 2020. Did I split 2020 numbers? So in his last game, did not do well. 7% K rate in that last game. 5.6 FIP. I like the Heroes. I like the Kiwoom Heroes. I really want to pick on David Buchanan. Now, he didn't have a terrible whip in that first game, but as you can see, we expect that to rise. And he's playing a team that has a lot of power. So to me, I think the Heroes are in one of the top spots. I think they will be fairly owned. I still like Doosan, but again, I want to be a little more spread out with the offenses because the pitching is a little more unsure to me. So that makes me feel like, whereas yesterday I took higher stands on the bats because I really like that stack. I think today I'll take a higher stand on some of the pitching if I can and rotate these bats in because I think that any one of them could go off, even though some are in better spots than others. But you can see we've got power numbers here going up against Buchanan. Byung-Ho Park projects fairly well for us, even though he's expensive. 6% home run rate last year, just awesome. You've got guys like Ha Seong Kim with a 19 homers last year, only a 12% K rate, 33 stolen bases. We got some speed, 17, 33, 13, 10. We got some speed. We got some power with Kim and Park. And if you look at the WOBAs for basically the 2 through 6, we covered this last night, the lowest is 349 from the 2 through 6. That's pretty good. And you look at the pricing. There are some pricing inefficiencies. I think Tae Kun Lee is a little too cheap. I know his ISO is not great, but he does have a decent WOBA. 2,300 just seems way too low. We'll see what the confirmed lineup looks like. But yeah, the Heroes and Doosan and I think probably the KT Wiz are the teams I'm looking at the most. The KT Wiz is more of a leverage thing, and I know some guys don't like that word. That's the only way I can describe it to you. My hunch is that Mike Wright is going to be popular. I could be wrong, but I think he might end up being a little popular. And so if he is, I'm hoping to have some of these KT Wiz guys. And our projections it's just a matter of, is Mike Wright, are we going to see the Mike Wright from that last game? But I showed you the numbers. They were a little alarming, right? They were a little alarming. Right? You guys, anybody who's not watching this live, and a lot of you don't watch this live, tell me in the comments what you're doing with Mike Wright before lock. So before lock starts, I want to hear from you guys if you're on the Mike Wright train or if you're more on the KT Wiz side. I just want to know. So yeah, I like the hero stack. While we're here on the subject, this is one of my favorite pitchers. I mean, he's got a pretty good projection. I don't. Let's not get it twisted. I'm not in love with this particular situation that we're in. It's not like I'm going over the top. But it's about playing the opponent. Samsung, you can see the opposing lineup. Samsung lines with a 19% K rate. It's one of the better ones you'll find on here. I don't like 8,900. But when it comes to finding guys who have done well, pitching to contact, all that kind of stuff, Won-Tae Choi, you can see, is very similar numbers, almost identical to Young Ha Lee. He had a lower FIP last year at 2.96. WHIP was almost identical. K rate was a little higher, but pretty similar. So, again, I think the pitchers I'll have the most of are probably going to be Min-Woo Lee and Shi Huang Shang, right? Go cheaper that way, load up on some bats. Hope that a lot of people are on the Mike Wright train and they're using some of that money. But the other thing is, like, Won-Tae Chi is kind of my pivot from Mike Wright. Now, Won-Tae Chi could end up being popular. I'm hoping that people go with Wright, but I don't necessarily know that that'll be the case. Mike Wright went for 22 DraftKings points last time. Won-Tae Choi went for 9. So I'm hoping some recency bias takes over. But if you look, the ERAs are identical in each of their starts, right? Obviously, Mike Wright is a bigger strikeout guy. But look at the FIP, the 2.7 for Choi. Maybe he got a little unlucky in that game. Mike Wright, 6.7. Maybe he was extremely lucky in that game. So there's some things that we got going on here. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, so I'm going to be taking shots on Won-Tae Choi. I'm always going to take the pitcher against Samsung. There'll be some slates, I'll take some shot on the Samsung offense too, but they're just right now the team that strikes out the most and they're the weakest. So I'm just going to keep continuing to attack them. That's what we do, right? We attack the weak. And MLB DFS looking for that edge. That sounded horrible when I said it. That's why I had to cover it up. It sounded terrible. But attacking a weak. That's not it. Oh, Mike said he got booted from Twitter. Come on, man. That sucks. How they boot you from Twitter, man? That's some bullshit. All right, here we go. Let me see. Let's see. Jay says, thanks for the stream. No problem, bro. I appreciate y'all watching. If you haven't hit that like button, it's really all we ask for. Matthew Rose, Choi Jang at pitcher seems appealing to target both. Let's go take a quick look here. I'm with you. Choi and Jang I like, man. Choi, Jang. So Jang, Won-Tae Choi, and Min-Woo Lee are probably my favorites. They're probably my favorites right now, those three. And it's not like my favorites, so I love this. It's my favorites out of the shit box we have to pick from. It looks like a couple of you guys agree with me on the KT Wiz. Myron Kidd says, I love the KT Wiz play. If they get to right, they'll get to face a depleted Dinos bullpen. That is true. That's a very good point, Myron. A very good point. Our boy, Mr. Anthony Valencia, I think Wright gets lit up tonight. Well, I mean, I'm hoping. Does anybody know? I don't know what the projected. I don't even know to get into projected ownerships. I'm assuming Mike Wright's going to be popular because he's a recognizable name. He did well, and he's 8,500. So he's cheaper than Young Ha Lee. He's got a higher strikeout rate than the two guys that are more expensive than him. So I'm assuming, and he's on a good team, right? So I'm assuming he's going to be popular. He's a big favorite, and that's the reason I kind of like the KT Wiz. So I don't know. We'll see. But maybe he's not even popular, and I'm just being an asshole and not playing him for no reason. But that is what I'm hoping for. That is what I'm hoping for. But all right, guys, I'm going to get up out of here. The article's up. I'll make any updates when I can. Appreciate those of you who hang out with us while we do these streams. The second one I've done. I'm trying to do these things Monday through Friday. Obviously, people got shit going on. So I'm trying to do things Monday through Friday. I plan on doing KBO content and League of Legends content. Once I think League of Legends, I think in June we should start seeing that pick back up. So I'll be doing the content for those up until baseball comes back, and then we'll make decisions from there. I don't know if KBO sticks around when MLB comes back. Probably not. It depends on what DraftKings does with the contests. But anyway, right now, take advantage while it's free, man. Subscribe to the channel. This will always be free. You'll always have the streams for free. But WiseTake.com, our content's free. Cheat sheets, projections. I do a slate preview with some stats, and then I have my own article where I kind of give you my takes, my analysis on the players that I think are relevant on the slate. So hit that like button if you haven't already. Appreciate all you guys hanging out with me. It's good to be back doing the streams again, man. I definitely missed doing it after a couple month hiatus. But stay healthy, stay safe. For myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always, good luck.